Bones, Order 322, the Brotherhood of Death. Would you believe that I'm talking about stuff that happens at one of the most respected academic institutions in the world? Let's start by rewinding the clock all the way back to 1832. Do you rewind clocks, or is that just a tape thing? Maybe you don't even know what a tape and rewinding is. It was a time when Yale University was already over 130 years old, and America itself wasn't even quite 60. Yet something secret and powerful was stirring in the shadows of Yale's campus. Skull and Bones. Now, according to the official story, Skull and Bones was founded by a man named William Huntington Russell, along with Alphonso Taft, who, fun fact, would go on to become the Secretary of War and the father of President William Howard Taft. So right from the beginning, we've got political juice flowing through the veins of this society. But what exactly was going on in 1832 that made Russell decide to establish a secret society? Yale already had debating clubs and fraternities, so why this mysterious elite group? Well, Yale was experiencing a surge in competitiveness. It was a time when social hierarchies were being formed on campus, and students with ambitions to rule the world were jockeying for prestige and power. Russell had just returned from studying in Germany, where secret societies were all the rage, particularly the ones that centered around mysterious rituals and exclusive membership, like the Bavarian Illuminati. And so, Skull and Bones was born, part student club, part clandestine fraternity. As it would turn out, a direct line to America's future corridors of power. But don't let the Gothic vibe fool you. At first, the society wasn't all about world domination. Russell's goal was pretty straightforward: to create an elite group of the most influential, ambitious young men who could form bonds, control debate clubs, and maybe, just maybe, take over the world one day. No big deal. In 1832, America was undergoing major changes. The country was expanding westward, the Industrial Revolution was heating up, and politically, the US was still very much figuring itself out. At Yale, the student body was made up of the sons of elite families. Think future lawyers, bankers, and politicians. In this environment, networking wasn't just social, it was survival. Skull and Bones offered an inner circle where these young men could start forming lifelong alliances. Skull and Bones grew quickly, and what started as a student club turned into a powerhouse for producing leaders, generals, senators, even US presidents. William Huntington Russell himself would go on to become a powerful figure, not just at Yale, but in the broader world of politics and law. But this isn't just a story about a guy forming a club with his buddies. Skull and Bones became a proving ground for the elite, a springboard into power, influence, and according to some, global domination. And you don't ask to join, they choose you. Skull and Bones taps a small, exclusive group of seniors at Yale University every year. Just 15 to be exact. So how do you become one of these 15? Well, the process is shrouded in secrecy, but we do know a few things. Members, also known as Bonesmen, are selected based on a mix of academic achievement, leadership potential, and family connections. Oh, and let's not forget the ambition, because let's face it, the whole point is to build a group of future leaders and power players. Every year, a ritual known as Tap Day occurs, where seniors are literally tapped on the shoulder by current bonesmen to be invited into the society. Imagine walking across campus, maybe thinking about your next exam or your lunch plans, and suddenly you feel a hand on your shoulder. That's it. You've been chosen. You're one of the elite. From this moment on, your path is set, and you're no longer just a student at Yale. You're part of a centuries-old tradition of secrecy and power. Once you're tapped, you don't even get to talk about it. The first rule of Skull and Bones: you do not talk about Skull and Bones. Second rule, you guessed it. See Rule 1. So who makes the cut? Over the years, the society has tapped a lot of big names. We're talking US presidents, Supreme Court justices, senators, even heads of major corporations. But it's not all about politics. Skull and Bones taps future movers and shakers in finance, law, and even media. These are people who from a young age are seen as destined for greatness, or at least for power. Whether it's about running the country, a Fortune 500 company, or a global NGO, these members are chosen for their ambition, their connections, and their potential to steer the world. Once you're in, Skull and Bones has its own internal structure. At the top are the members from previous years, known as the patriarchs. They guide the new initiates, or knights, as they're called once tapped. The patriarchs hold considerable sway over the society and its traditions, ensuring that each new class follows the rituals and customs that have been passed down for generations. The new knights, who are tapped in their senior year at Yale, remain involved in the society throughout their lives, with annual reunions and ongoing networking opportunities. The ties that bind aren't just for fun. They're a web of influence that spans industries and even continents. But here's something most people wonder. What do they actually do? Well, that's part of the mystery, and why Skull and Bones has fueled so many conspiracy theories. Officially, it's about building lifelong friendships, fostering leadership skills, and networking within the society's alumni. Think of it as a very secretive LinkedIn. Unofficially, well, that's where things get interesting. From mysterious rituals to behind-the-scene power moves, no one outside the group knows exactly what's going on, and the Bonesmen aren't talking. One thing is clear though: once you're in for life. Skull and Bones is a lifetime membership to a world of influence, and, if the rumors are true, power that reaches far beyond Yale's campus. What happens behind the locked doors of this secret society has been the subject of rumors, speculation, and straight-up conspiracy theories for almost 200 years. Let's start with the most obvious symbol, the skull and crossbones. You've probably seen this symbol in all kinds of contexts. Pirate flags, poison labels, you name it. But for Skull and Bones, it's much more than just a creepy emblem. It represents death, secrecy, and the ultimate boundary between the known and the unknown. To the Bonesmen, it symbolizes that they operate beyond the typical boundaries of life, like they're the masters of their own fate. And if that sounds a little intense, well, it is. The number 322, which you'll also see associated with Skull and Bones, is equally mysterious. Some say it refers to the year 322 BC, marking the death of the Greek orator Demosthenes, symbolizing the end of Greek democracy and the rise of a more secretive form of power. Others claim it's simply an internal code, another piece of the puzzle we'll never fully understand. Then there's the infamous tomb. Picture this: a windowless, fortress-like building on Yale's campus, designed to keep outsiders out and secrets in. The tomb is where the Bonesmen meet for their most secretive rituals, far from prying eyes. So what's happening inside the tomb? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Officially, members take part in ceremonies that foster loyalty and brotherhood. But the details? Those are heavily guarded. Over the years, we've heard whispers of everything from mock sacrifices to confessions of personal secrets. There are rumors of dark, candlelit rooms where initiates lay in coffins and speak of their deepest fears. One of the more well-known stories involves the initiation ritual, where new members are required to lie in a coffin and discuss their life goals, fears, and even intimate details about their personal lives. It sounds creepy to me. But there's a method to the madness. The coffin, symbolizing death, is used to remind members of their mortality, encouraging them to reflect on their lives and the legacy they wish to leave behind. It's a stark way of saying, look, we're all gonna die one day. What will you accomplish before that happens? Others would call it trauma-based programming, but I didn't call it that, did I? Another strange ritual is the exchanging of secrets. Members are encouraged to confess their deepest, darkest secrets during these initiations, binding them together through vulnerability and trust. Some say that these confessions are used to maintain control, because if everyone knows each other's secrets, there's a built-in system of accountability. Or maybe just really awkward reunions. Let's talk about the actual skulls. Yes, real skulls. One of the most notorious legends is the alleged possession of the skull of Geronimo, the famous Apache leader. According to some reports, members of Skull and Bones stole his remains during World War I and brought them back to the tomb as a trophy. While the story remains unproven, it certainly adds to the aura of mystery surrounding the society. Skulls are believed to represent more than just death. They symbolize control over life and death, a recurring theme in Skull and Bones rituals. Bonesmen, it seems, like to remind themselves and their fellow members that they hold the power to shape their destinies, not just as individuals, but as a collective force, maybe even the destinies of others. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The secrecy around these rituals isn't just for theatrics. There's a very real element of loyalty that underpins everything Skull and Bones does. The idea is that once you've shared your deepest, darkest secrets, once you've laid in the coffin and symbolically confronted your mortality, you're bound to your fellow bonesmen for life. This isn't just some fraternity handshake. This is a lifelong commitment, sealed with rituals that are intended to keep everyone in line, bound by trust, fear, and power. The rituals and symbols all boil down to this central theme: the connection between power, secrecy, and mortality. The skull, the bones, the confessions, they're all about embracing the reality of death while wielding as much influence as possible before it comes. And that's the thing about Skull and Bones. The power lies not just in who you are, but in what you're willing to reveal and what secrets you're willing to keep. The tomb is more than just a building. It's a symbol of the secrecy and the power that Skull and Bones represents. It's been described as a crypt, a sanctuary, and a vault of secrets. It's designed to keep outsiders out and its secrets in. The tomb is located on High Street in New Haven, Connecticut. The tomb is a windowless, blocky, almost intimidating structure. From the outside, it's a building that dares you to wonder what's going on inside. It's been expanded several times since it was first built in the mid-19th century, but the architectural style has remained the same, stark and unwelcoming, perfect for a society built on keeping things hidden. Once you step inside, though, assuming you're one of the chosen few, you enter a different world. It's part museum, part clubhouse, and part secret lair. The layout of the tomb is just as mysterious as the society itself. Rumor has it that inside there are chambers dedicated to various aspects of the bonesman's initiation rituals, including spaces for confessions, meditation, and reflection. There's even a room allegedly known as the Inner Temple, where the most secretive of rites are performed. According to some reports, the tomb also contains a collection of bizarre and valuable relics, including stolen art and historical documents. But why is the tomb so important to Skull and Bones? Well, it represents more than just a physical space. It's the heart of the society's secrecy. It's where members can meet, discuss, and plot without any prying eyes. It's a place where they can be free from the outside world, shielded from judgment, and focused on their future goals of power and influence. And let's not forget that the tomb isn't just about conducting rituals. It's a symbol of the power that Skull and Bones wields, both within Yale and in the world at large. It serves as a constant reminder that the society's power comes from its secrecy, from the things that don't leave the room. Security is no joke at the tomb. Obviously, it's locked down tight. Members of Skull and Bones are known to be extremely protective of the building. Nobody is allowed inside unless they've been initiated into the society, and the general public is left to speculate about what goes on behind those doors. If you've ever walked past the tomb, you know how imposing it feels. There's no sign, no windows, nothing to give away what's happening inside. It's just like a cold, stone exterior with a lot of history. In fact, that level of security has only intensified over the years as Skull and Bones became more well known, and as conspiracy theories about the society's influence grew. The tomb became a symbol of everything the society stood for: secrecy, power, and above all, exclusion. There are also whispers of secret underground tunnels connecting the tomb to other parts of Yale's campus, though these have never been proven. Some say that the society holds forbidden texts inside the tomb, rare documents that detail ancient secrets of power and influence. Again, no one outside of the society really knows for sure, but the fact that the tomb remains so closely guarded only adds to the intrigue. But what about their real-world influence? What happens when these elite members leave the halls of Yale and step into the corridors of power? Skull and Bones has left its mark on politics, finance, and even global governance in ways you might not expect. Let's start with politics. Skull and Bones is like a training ground for future American leaders, especially U.S. presidents. Two of the most famous bonesmen to occupy the Oval Office were George H.W. Bush and his son, George W. Bush. Think about that for a second. Two U.S. presidents from the same secret society, both wielding enormous influence over American politics for decades. But they're not the only ones. John Kerry, the former Secretary of State, Democratic nominee for president in 2004, and a major player in U.S. politics, is also a member of Skull and Bones. In fact, during the 2004 presidential election, both major party candidates, Kerry and George W. Bush, were bonesmen. So no matter who won that election, Skull and Bones had a seat in the White House. I think you could call that insider influence. Bonesmen have also found their way into Congress, the Senate, and other high-ranking government positions. They've served as ambassadors, Supreme Court justices, and key figures in the executive branch. The Society's alumni network runs deep. Once you're tapped, you're plugged into a network of future leaders and decision makers who can help open doors and shape policy. But it's not just politics where Skull and Bones has its reach. The world of finance has also been shaped by the Society. Bonesmen have held top positions in major financial institutions, investment banks, and corporations. From Wall Street to the Federal Reserve, Bonesmen have played a key role in shaping U.S. economic policy. One of the most notable bonesmen in finance was W. Averill Harriman. He was a key player in the world of banking and diplomacy, serving as U.S. Secretary of Commerce and ambassador to the Soviet Union and Great Britain during pivotal moments in history. Harriman came from America's wealthiest families and helped create international trade policies that shaped the post-World War II world. The Society's influence in the financial world doesn't end with individual members. Skull and Bones has long been rumored to have connections with powerful banking families, such as the Rockefellers and Morgans. While some of these connections are speculative, the fact remains that bonesmen have been embedded in the world of high finance for well over a century. But it doesn't stop at America's borders. Bonesmen have also been involved in major international organizations, like the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. These are institutions that shape global economic policies, and having members of Skull and Bones in key positions means that their influence extends well beyond U.S. shores. For example, Bonesman Henry Luce, the founder of Time magazine, helped shape American public opinion on international affairs throughout the 20th century. Luce used his media empire to promote ideas like American exceptionalism or the American century, influencing how the public perceived global events and the U.S.'s role in the world. One of the reasons Skull and Bones continues to have so much power is because of its tight-knit network of alumni. Membership isn't just a college experience, it's a lifetime of connections. The Society has been described as an elite pipeline to positions of influence, and with members in government, finance, law, and media, it's not hard to see why. But it's important to remember that this influence is often hidden in plain sight. Bonesmen don't wear secret badges or throw hand signals at each other when they meet, as far as I know. Instead, the influence is subtle, strategic, and long-lasting. It's the quiet connections made at reunions and private events that shape decisions that affect all of us, whether we know it or not. Now that we've covered the political, financial, and global influence of Skull and Bones, it's time to dive into the really juicy stuff, conspiracy theories. Because let's be honest, what's a secret society without a little dark intrigue? And when it comes to Skull and Bones, the theories are about as wild as they come. Skull and Bones has been at the center of some of the most far-reaching and sometimes far-fetched conspiracies out there. We've got the New World Order theory. This is the idea that a small group of elites, including members of Skull and Bones, are working behind the scenes to create a single global government that will control every aspect of our lives. According to this theory, everything from financial markets to foreign policy is being directed by the shadowy group of insiders. The idea of a new world order has popped up in various forms throughout history, but it gained new life in the late 20th century, especially with the rise of globalization. And let's be real, when you have two bonesmen, George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush, as US presidents, it's easy to see why people start connecting dots. One of the most notable moments for this theory came in 1991, when President George H.W. Bush gave a speech about the post-Cold War world, referring to the emergence of a, you guessed it, new world order. Theorists latched on to that phrase, seeing it as confirmation that Skull and Bones was part of a global conspiracy to create a single world government. And I've mentioned it a few times already, but there's the infamous Geronimo's skull theory, which is both bizarre and kind of disrespectful. The story goes that in 1918, a group of bonesmen, including Prescott Bush, the father of George H.W. Bush, stole the skull of the legendary Apache leader Geronimo from his grave in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. According to the legend, the skull was brought back to the tomb and has been used in Skull and Bones rituals ever since. For years, Native American groups have demanded the return of Geronimo's remains, though Skull and Bones has never confirmed that they even have them. In 2009, Geronimo's descendants even filed a lawsuit against Yale University trying to reclaim the skull, but no concrete evidence has been provided that the remains are in the tomb. Still, the story persists, adding to the eerie mythology of the society. They allegedly have the skulls of other famous historical figures as well, but we'll leave that for another time. One of the most enduring theories is the idea that Skull and Bones members have not just infiltrated the US government, but specifically control intelligence agencies, particularly the CIA. Many key figures in the early days of the CIA were bonesmen, including James Jesus Angleton, the agency's head of counterintelligence. There's also the infamous Bush connection. George H.W. Bush, a former director of the CIA and a bonesman, is often cited as a prime example of the overlap between Skull and Bones and America's intelligence community. The idea here is that Skull and Bones operates like a shadow government, with alumni using their positions in intelligence to secretly influence foreign policy, financial markets, and even global conflicts. Conspiracy theorists, or people like me, claim that this secret group of bonesmen is working to destabilize governments, launch covert operations, and essentially direct the course of world events, all while remaining behind the scenes. It's a theory that lines up with the idea of a global elite pulling the strings from the shadows. Most people would have you think the truth is probably far less dramatic than the theories suggest. They would say Skull and Bones is, at its core, a networking society, a group of people brought together by their ambition and connections. That the way they work and who they are doesn't mean they're hatching global domination plans in dark rooms. One thing that these theories reveal, more than anything, is the allure of secrecy. When you combine secrecy with power, you get speculation, and Skull and Bones is a perfect breeding ground for both. At the end of the day, whether Skull and Bones is part of some grand conspiracy or not, one thing is for sure: the society's influence is real, and its members have shaped and continue to shape the world we live in. Of course, where there's one theory, there are others, and a very specific question arises: is Skull and Bones connected to other secret societies? There's no shortage of rumors linking Skull and Bones to the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and even Bohemian Grove, each of which comes with its own long history of influence and secrecy. Some theories suggest that William Huntington Russell, the founder of Skull and Bones, was inspired by secret societies he encountered in Germany, particularly those influenced by Masonic traditions. Russell studied in Germany during a period when secret societies were particularly popular among intellectuals and elites. It's speculated that he may have come into contact with a Masonic lodge during his time abroad, particularly Lodge 322. While there's no official link between Skull and Bones and the Freemasons, there are undeniable similarities. Both societies are shrouded in secrecy, both emphasize initiation rituals, and both are associated with some of the most powerful figures in history. Like the Freemasons, Skull and Bones members are often highly influential in politics, finance, and business. In fact, some members of Skull and Bones have also been Freemasons, though some say this is more likely a coincidence of ambition and status than an official connection. I don't believe in coincidences, though. One major difference is that Freemasonry is much more open in terms of membership, at least compared to Skull and Bones. The Freemasons have lodges around the world, with clear structures and public ceremonies, even if their rituals remain private. Skull and Bones, on the other hand, is invitation only, and it's much smaller and more exclusive. But the secrecy that surrounds both societies definitely draws comparisons. Now let's talk about the Illuminati. We talked about this earlier, but the idea that Skull and Bones could be connected to the Illuminati comes up a lot when discussing secret societies. Maybe it's because their founder was studying in Germany, where the original Illuminati was founded by Adam Weishaupt. The Illuminati, if it even exists today, is supposedly a covert organization aiming to create a new world order, controlling global events from behind the scenes. Sound familiar? That's because Skull and Bones is often lumped in with the Illuminati in conspiracy circles, with people claiming that it's simply a US chapter of the larger Illuminati organization. Again, most people would say there's no real evidence that supports this connection. But then there's no real evidence of a lot of things, including certain science concepts that we live by today. Sure, both groups are associated with the elite, and both have sparked countless rumors of world domination. But beyond thematic overlap, there's no concrete proof that Skull and Bones is part of some larger Illuminati network. At least to the people that say this. Bohemian Grove is a private club that hosts a 2-week summer retreat for some of the world's most powerful men, politicians, business executives, even artists. The club is known for its bizarre rituals, including the infamous cremation of care ceremony, which involves the symbolic burning of care and worry. What's interesting to me is that many of the attendees of Bohemian Grove are also Skull and Bones members. For example, both George H.W. Bush and his son George W. Bush have been associated with and attended Bohemian Grove, just as they have with Skull and Bones. And much like Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove is all about secrecy. What happens there stays there. But again, people's resistance to this connection is that they say that Bohemian Grove is more of a social retreat, where networking and relaxation are the goals. Skull and Bones, by contrast, is deeply focused on rituals and long-term influence. People say that while there's overlap in membership, the two groups serve different purposes. I'll let you be the judge of that. But are these connections between Skull and Bones and other secret societies real? Well, to me, the answer is simply yes. Others would say, kind of, but not really. They would address the overlap in membership by saying that the same types of people those with ambition, wealth, and influence tend to be drawn to elite societies. I'm not here to argue with them. I'm simply here to present you with some information on your journey to the truth. What's clear is that Skull and Bones, like the Freemasons and Bohemian Grove, operates in a world of secrecy, power, and influence. Whether or not these groups are working together is anyone's guess, but the idea that a small group of elites could be pulling the strings from behind the scenes is pretty plausible. It's what makes these societies so fascinating, a real part of our history, and frankly, a little scary. Is Skull and Bones still relevant today? Or is it just a relic of the past, overshadowed by modern power structures? The golden era of Skull and Bones was undeniably in the 19th and 20th centuries, when its members seemed to be everywhere, occupying the highest positions in politics, finance, and global organizations. But today, the world looks a little different. We've got new power players in Silicon Valley. Wall Street is more diverse, and the traditional paths to power through old-school Ivy League networks are no longer the only way to the top. So has Skull and Bones lost its grip on influence? Not exactly. While the society may not dominate the headlines the way it used to, its alumni network remains strong and well-connected. In fact, many Bonesmen continue to hold significant power behind the scenes. The network they've built over nearly 200 years is like a spider web, quiet, almost invisible, but always present. Today's Bonesmen are still drawn from the elite ranks of Yale's student body. They're future politicians, CEOs, and thought leaders, but their career paths may look a little different than those of previous generations. In addition to the classic careers in law, government, and finance, we now see Bonesmen making waves in tech, media, and even entertainment. The society remains secretive about its current members, but some notable modern Bonesmen include Austin Goolsbee, who served as the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors under President Obama, and Stephen A. Schwarzman, CEO of the Blackstone Group, one of the largest private equity firms in the world. While these names may not have the same immediate recognition as Bush or Kerry, they're indicative of the society's ongoing influence in shaping industries that matter today. A major shift in modern Skull and Bones came in 1991 when, after years of internal debate, the society finally admitted women. Before that, the membership was strictly male, which was a point of contention even within the Yale community. Some of the older alumni fought the change tooth and nail, fearing that it would dilute the society's traditions. But eventually, progress won out. Today, women make up a significant portion of the society's members, and they're just as ambitious and connected as their male counterparts. This shift has helped modernize the image of Skull and Bones, but it has also raised the question: is the society actually adapting to modern values, or is it merely keeping up appearances? One thing that has definitely changed in modern times is how much harder it is to keep secrets. In the digital age, where information spreads at the speed of light, and social media has a way of exposing even the most private details, how does a group like Skull and Bones maintain its secrecy? The answer is simple. Technology may have changed, but the society's culture of secrecy hasn't. Bonesmen are sworn to silence, and even in the age of smartphones and live streaming, nothing significant has leaked out about what goes on inside the tomb. If anything, the society's ability to maintain such tight control over its information in this hyper-connected era only adds to its mystique. One of the most interesting questions about Skull and Bones in modern times is whether the society has evolved beyond its origins. In many ways, it has, Modern bonesmen are more diverse, more involved in tech, and more progressive in their careers than the early members. But in other ways, Skull and Bones remains deeply rooted in tradition. The same rituals, the same sense of exclusivity, and the same secretive nature continue to define the group. While some have argued that Skull and Bones is less relevant in today's world, where power is more diffused and less centralized, the truth is that its members continue to wield influence. But that influence is quieter now, operating behind the scenes rather than in the public eye. Skull and Bones' legacy just isn't about the rituals or the secrecy. It's about the people it has produced and the networks it has built. From its very first members back in 1832 to the bonesmen of today, the society has acted as a proving ground for those destined to lead. Whether in politics, finance, media, or even tech, Skull and Bones alumni have had a hand in shaping the direction of the country, and in some cases, the world. Over the years, bonesmen have had some of the most powerful positions in the US government. We've already talked about the 2 Bush presidents, but Skull and Bones' reach goes much further than that. From CIA directors to Wall Street moguls, Supreme Court justices to ambassadors, bonesmen have left their mark on nearly every major American institution. Skull and Bones' impact on American society is hard to overstate. For nearly 200 years, its members have shaped policy, guided business empires, and directed the course of American history. While other secret societies may have larger memberships or more global reach, few can match Skull and Bones in terms of the depth of its influence on American society. That being said, not everyone is comfortable with the idea that a small group of people, bound together by secret rituals and shared loyalty, holds such power. The secrecy itself is part of the problem. For many, Skull and Bones represents an outdated model of leadership, one that's based on privilege and exclusion rather than merit and transparency. But for the bonesmen themselves, the society is a source of pride, a brotherhood, and now sisterhood, of individuals who believe they're not just destined to succeed, but destined to lead. What's clear is that Skull and Bones isn't going anywhere anytime soon, as long as they're ambitious students at Yale, and as long as there are networks of power to be built, Skull and Bones will continue to play a role, whether behind the scenes, or in some cases, right in front of us. At the end of the day, Skull and Bones' legacy isn't just about the past, it's about the future. The society's influence may ebb and flow, but its roots run deep. And with the number 322 still hanging above the tomb's entrance, it's safe to say that Skull and Bones will continue to shape the next generation of leaders, just as it has for nearly 2 centuries. So that's it. A careful conversation about one of the most secretive and powerful societies in the world. Skull and Bones may keep its secret locked away, but its impact on the world is impossible to ignore. Now, I didn't get into the wildest parts of the truth, because that's something you have to be cautious about. If you encounter someone who doesn't truly know how things work, they'll tell you too much. And if you encounter someone who knows nothing, well, they'll tell you nothing at all. All I'm here to do is leave you breadcrumbs, little clues, about some of the important and often overlooked parts of our earthly reality. The rest is for you to discover. Thank you for being here, and remember, sometimes the most powerful forces are the ones you don't see.